Hi everyone, this is Yurii from ORIL, and it means that we have another episode of our Innovation Blueprint podcast. I'm glad to see you folks with us today, and today we have another guest in our studio. Our next guest is a co-founder and CEO of the company Saltbox. His name is Tyler Scriven. Tyler, say hello to the crowd.
Hey guys, great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. Tyler, thank you for finding the time to be in our guest today. I appreciate that. Today, we're going to discuss your company, the services you provide, technologies that you guys use, and how you see the future of the real estate, of the prop tech, and technologies in general. That's everything that we discuss most of the time. However, I know that you're kind of very creative person because we do not have any co-founders or founders or CEOs who doesn't have a positive mindset. So the question is, can you please tell me where the idea came from to create a Saltbox? And why did you decide to create this company?
Yeah, well, first of all, I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on the show. It's awesome, and it's a great question. So, my my journey to Saltbox, I would describe it in two parts. I think the first part are just a lot of early values and experiences that were instilled in me as a kid. My grandmother was an Avon saleswoman, and if you don't know what that means, it's kind of it was a very, very early version of a D2C e-commerce operation, and I used to deliver packages for her of products she sold in the neighborhood. And I think those early exposures to kind of really hands-on entrepreneurship were very informative for me. Ultimately, though, it was in 2016 that I actually bought an e-commerce business myself and got really involved in the weeds of that company and realized just how much of a grind small business logistics really were. And that is what inspired me to start Saltbox. So really, in a very true sense, building a product to solve a problem that I had myself.
All right. So pretty long story for creating that. It wasn't something that just came into your mind after the dream or something like that. So that's a long story. And can you please tell us a little bit more detail about what exactly you guys do?
Yeah. So I think Saltbox is most easily understood as describing it as the place that you go if you are a small business who's been operating out of your spare bedroom or your garage or self-storage facility, and those things just don't work for you anymore, right? Your logistics needs, your business has grown beyond a point of being able to have this kind of ad hoc, infrastructure and system of operating, and you need a warehouse that has loading docks and it has pallet jacks and all the kind of function of a full scale warehouse, but at a much smaller scale. You also need a whole host of services and support in order to run that business. And so Saltbox, in addition to providing co-warehousing, as we refer to it, also provides on-demand labor and logistics services. And then lastly, you need software to power the shipping activity behind your business. And so we developed a shipping management platform called Parcel that is purpose-built to give small businesses access to a broad range of carriers and carrier rates. And so, in its totality, what we're doing is effectively, bringing really sophisticated logistics capability and infrastructure to SMBs in a way that is very accessible. And we do that through this unique co-warehousing and service model.
Okay, and how do you combine logistic with the warehousing, with the co-working? What helps you to do that? Is that a team? Is that some specific software? Is that just the great management?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there's a part of our business that is obviously, deeply physical, and so, there's no single answer to how we go about that. I mean, we employ designers and we employ all sorts of people who, are really thinking very deeply about what does it mean to create a physical space that is purpose-built to serve small businesses, that gives them the logistical sophistication they need, but also in an environment that reflects the degree of comfort and familiarity that they're looking for. And so we're often referred to as the WeWork of logistics, and that is that term could kind of go either way depending on your view of the world. But I think it's a fair, if not simple, description of the value that we're delivering for our customers.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And talking about some challenges that you guys had while you were growing, what was the most challenging part?
um, Man, that's a tough one. I like to tell my team and anyone who will listen that building a startup or building any business from scratch and having big ambitions, it's a lot like climbing a big mountain. You imagine the effort to climb Mount Everest or K2 or something, and there are a couple of simple truths about that effort. The first is that the good news is each step you take forward, it's a little bit easier, or you're a little bit closer, I should say, excuse me, it's not easier, to your goal. The second is that each step, it's a little bit harder, right? There's a little bit less oxygen, you're a little bit more tired, it's a bit harder. And so, when you ask me the most challenging part, the reality is that, my life, my team's life is defined by, facing a new challenge every day. It's really hard to say which one is the most. Perhaps just to keep going is perhaps the hardest part of it all. If I'm being very honest with you.
Okay, so basically the mindset is a key.
The mindset is a key. I think understanding the nature of the game, expecting that it doesn't get easier, it gets harder. But hopefully, you find motivation in the progress, you find motivation in the impact that you're having with your customers. I think if I kind of focus on reflecting your question at a more pragmatic level, and what really on a day-to-day level has been the most challenging thing, I would say that it is kind of the physicality of our business, right? I mean, we would love a world in which we could sit behind a computer and manifest our vision and deliver a great experience to our customers. But the reality is, we have to do that in the physical world. Now, we love doing that, and we think it's really important. But moving at the speed that you want to move at, while caring for a physical footprint of 12 locations, as it were, and making sure that those operations every day are really excellent. That's a challenge for us. It's one that we welcome, but it certainly is a challenge.
Yeah, you definitely provide a business in the real world. However, I'm pretty sure that you guys using some software. May I ask you, what kind of tools do you guys use for day-to-day routine? What helps you to run your business successfully?
Yeah, so I mean, there are, several layers to that. I think, perhaps some of the more interesting components are the things that we've built in-house in order to, operate as efficiently as we can. Namely, we built, docs rotation software that, if you could imagine the circumstance, we have, truckloads and parcels coming in and out all day, belonging to, many different companies, 100, 200 companies that operate within our facilities. And we have to move those goods in and out of the facilities with precision and accuracy and speed. And so we built technology to enable that, to ensure that we know where things are, where they're going, and that they get there. Both within the buildings but also outside of the buildings. We have, in a very different vein, we have to think a lot about the experience of our customers, our members, as we call them, in the facilities. How do you get, how do you open doors? How do you request labor services? Things like this, right? And so we built an integrated member-facing application that we call Saltbox OS that enables these various things. Now, we're not building the access control hardware ourselves. We use Brivo for that. I'm sure you're familiar with Brivo.
I'm familiar with that. We have it in our community.
Yeah, but we're building, we're using Brivo's APIs and along with many others to bring these into a unified, software experience for our members in order to really kind of abstract away all of the, the messy parts of having to live life in a Saltbox and make that really easy.
All right. So thank you for sharing. And talking about that tool that you guys developed, you mentioned that you developed this for yourself. So basically, that wasn't something out of the box that you just obtain onto your needs. And why did you decide to proceed with a custom solution? Because you just want to have something specifically fitting to your needs, or because there was nothing similar on market that helped you to run your business successfully?
I would say the latter. I mean, we if you think about, if you kind of abstract away what we're doing, obviously there are many companies in the logistics space and elsewhere, that have docks rotation operations going on. There's nothing novel about that. But what is novel is the fact that, we are sorting not just for ourselves or for one user, but rather for, 100 or 200 users, if you will, in those facilities, inbound and outbound. And so, this condition creates, the need for a very unique product that does not exist in the market. And so, we had to build that ourselves. We certainly, where we can, prefer to not, build software because, as you know, it's time consuming and expensive.
Oh, we do. We're a software development company. We know that.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah, and you mentioned that you hired a third-party company, and why did you decide to do that? Because it was cheaper for you, or you decide to focus on your business? So, what was the purpose of hiring someone?
So the software we built in house with Saltbox employees. We have a small engineering team, and despite the fact that we are a co-warehousing company, there's still lots of software to be built. And so we built that product in-house. We certainly have at points, worked with and continue to work with, outsourced teams of engineers. I hate the term outsourced, but, with folks that are not employees of ours. We try as best as we can to actually build, in-house where we need to.
Yeah, the greatest thing I've ever heard regarding the third-party companies, when one CEO told me that I prefer to build the product, not build a team. I will better to take experience of some team that already done this many times. They know what to do. What's the point for me to hire them and tell them what them to do instead of focusing on the product? And they will bring everything that I need to me, and I will not spend on that any time. So I think that's the very right point.
True, and look, I think, and we'll get to, I'm sure, AI discussion here soon, but just I'll say in the moment that one of the observations that we've made. So at Saltbox, we work with many third-party freelancers and contractors and what have you, and we have found that we're now able to manage those relationships much more efficiently because it is so much easier to create a really clear spec doc, for example, right, or a really clear progress update or what have you. And so the basic kind of building blocks of managing healthy and effective relationships with third-party companies and such are just easier now to manage, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, you already kind of look a little bit further into our conversation, and you mentioned the AI. And I know that AI nowadays is everywhere. And what do you think about AI in general?
Man, yeah. Would you like a book? My thinking about AI truly does go back now, 16 years. No one was talking about AI 16 years ago, but I think, as you know, Yurii, I spent.
But everybody watched Terminator 2, so people were talking about that.
Yeah, that's true. And I spent 6 years on the executive team at a company called Palantir, which back then was a very early stage startup. Today is a kind of leading global company, really at the forefront of driving AI adoption in the enterprise. And so we were thinking very, very early about how to establish the foundational building blocks that would eventually enable the application of AI, in the enterprise. Here we are today, in kind of this, moment with significant momentum, and we see that adoption, really beginning to pick up. What do I think about it? I think that it is going to transform the world in ways that we don't fully appreciate, that it would be impossible to fully appreciate. I think that we live in a moment today of tremendous opportunity for individuals and companies who are, early in the adoption curve of this technology. And I think that, if you are someone who's leading a business or, just for your own good, want to get ahead, now is the time to do that. And there's just tremendous opportunity. And so, at Saltbox, we've made an enormous push to make sure that at every level, individuals, also up into our core systems, that we are aggressively driving, the adoption of AI just to go faster.
Okay, and if let's say you would consider AI nowadays, how would you call it? Is that co-pilot? Is that some add-on to solutions? Is that just a tool? What is AI for you right now?
It manifests in many ways, right? So I think, on one end of the spectrum, I or any number of, our employees probably are interfacing with that co-pilot, if you will, whether it's ChatGPT or, Gemini or your favorite, your favorite LLM, interacting with those LLMs, dozens of times a day. I would say at this point, it's just kind of the default state, right, to be interacting with that technology. But then on the other end of the spectrum, we have an increasing number of automated workflows that are occurring throughout the company that are in different ways, leveraging generative AI, whether that be an agent or whether that be some, something embedded in, process or what have you. And so, it manifests in a lot of ways. And I think, it's been said before, and I think it's a great frame of reference that, one should think about AI as being, like electricity. It is a general purpose utility that will eventually forge its way into, any and all aspects of our life. And I think we are beginning to see that play out now.
Okay, how do you guys use AI nowadays? Is just helping you to optimize your mailing, or you already have some integration in your products AI based?
Yeah. So we today do not have any customer facing, other than maybe chat bots on our website, things of this nature. We are actually in the midst of developing our first true, member facing AI powered solution. But what you would find today is first and foremost a employee base that is increasingly very adept at leveraging AI as a co-pilot, if you will. And my observation is that the people who are doing that most effectively today are multiples more productive. Not a percentage; they are multiples more productive. And so that alone is huge. Beyond that, we are building many different custom agents that have different roles, with whether it's in billing or whether it is in customer support, or whether it is in our sales process, agents that are doing all sorts of tasks, big task and small task, data refinement, synthesizing insights, you name it. And so I think that, but I think that the low-hanging fruit here again is just to drive awareness and adoption amongst your employees, and that alone can drive really significant boost in productivity.
Okay, if you would be able to develop some AI tool, let's say, for your personal needs and the needs of your company, what would it be?
Yeah, well, I have done that. I'm doing that, and so I'll give you an example of something that I've developed for our team. We've developed a agent that operates through Slack. And so you imagine this is I'll describe
Yeah, we use in Slack. Yeah, we know how it works.
so you are an individual on, in our company. It's Monday morning. You're going to receive a Slack message from this agent. The agent is going to say, "Hey, Yurii, last week you said you were working on X, Y, and Z. How'd that go?" Right? And you're going to have a conversation, and it's going to say, "Great. Like, what are you working on this week?" And then you're going to tell it, and it's going to say, "Oh, did you know that so and so is working?" Because it has this kind of base of knowledge. And so you're going to have a dialogue, right, for 5 minutes with this agent, and that agent is then going to go back and report, what you said essentially back to, your manager in a very synthesized way. And so, in essence, you have these agents that are out collecting intelligence right across the organization, having real dialogue, and synthesizing that into, what ends up being a very insightful report. So that's an example of a way that we're using simple agent kind of configuration to really drive this, accelerate the speed of how quickly a leader in a company can understand and get some ground truth of what's going on.
That sounds pretty cool, and that's actually funny that you already developing something that you would like to have. Okay, if we're talking about some software, let's say dream software, that will help you do something in the future, something bigger than just that small bot that helps you to understand what's going on in the company and find the same ground with the rest of employees. If that would be something bigger, what would it be? Would be something that can replace your team and help you to do a lot of things absolutely automatically without human interaction, or that might be something that will increase your marketing strategy or something like that?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I think that all these things will be done in due time. I think the way I would respond to your question would be to say that I found that the most effective way today to think about kind of the real potential of AI within a company is to think about the roles that people do, and to basically build that person. So I'll just use a very random example because I was talking to someone about this the other day. But if you take again random, but look at accountants, not just broadly, but accountants who work in professional services, field services companies. Right, I work in a accountant for a plumbing company or HVAC company or what have you. The way that you determine the TAM of said opportunity is to essentially look at the salaries, right, of the total number of said accountants.
Yes.
Now, I don't know precisely, but I'm going to estimate there are at least 100,000, of these companies, probably many more. The accountants are paid, $50,000 each, and so here you are with the $5 billion TAM. Right now, it's probably much bigger than that. That's a TAM for just a single role, right? And what would it take to go and build a piece of software that can do that job, right? Or it can do half of that job, or whatever it may be, right? That is kind of a framework for thinking about opportunity. Now, if you think about it in that way, the opportunity is virtually unlimited, and there are many jobs to be done. And so, I say that to say that, like, when I reflect on your question, I don't envision some sort of a singular grand solution, right? Rather, I say to myself, okay, who are the most valuable individuals that I could replicate effectively, right? Through this technology, and that's the way in which
that's the good manager mindset.
Yes. I think the other thing I would say, and again, this is a bit tangential to your question, but is building software to enable people to get the most out of generative AI. And the context for that answer is that today, right, the state of the world today is that, is with most things, you have power users, right, of ChatGPT, and those power users, have tremendous productivity increases, and you have a curve, and the the distinction between the power user and the non-power user, there are many things, but what it's not in general is it's not just simple training, right? It actually is much more to do with the thought process, the ways and means, the approach that person takes. And so, if I could build anything right now, very practically, I would build a platform that was a co-pilot, a thinker of sorts that would help my team leverage the technology better, right? That would see the possibility, that would take those proactive steps to say, hey, like you can do, and that's coming, that's coming. But I would love to have that today.
Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's gonna come on the market pretty soon. The last question regarding AI: where do you see the prop tech, let's say, in 5 or 10 years since now? And how do you think that AI will shape it up?
I think that
we're going to record it and show you in 10 years.
Yeah, no, well, my answer is going to stand well, because I'm going to say, I don't know. Right. But let me elaborate on that answer. With respect to virtually anything, if you ask me, what does this look like in 5 years? My answer is, I do not know. Right. I believe that we're going to experience such dramatic change over the next 5 years that being able to reasonably anticipate or predict what that looks like is very hard. And I mentioned earlier that I think that one should think about AI as electricity, and if you just take a second and kind of imagine, I think it was 1887 or something like this when Thomas Edison introduced the light bulb. Can you imagine him saying, hey, like, let's think, guys, about what this is going to do for us. Let's think about how electricity is going to change the world. That's a fool's errand, right? No one.
You have no idea how Vegas is going to look like with this.
You have no idea. And now we can see that it's very easy for us to appreciate why it would have been impossible for those people to have any sort of reasonable vision of how electricity would change the world. And yet, as we sit here today, right, we want to try to envision this. And so I hate to cop out on you, but I would simply say, I just don't know. What I do know, and what I think is most important, is I know that today, by and large, the world still works by, the same rules it's worked by for quite a while, right? But there is this new thing, and that new thing gives individuals and companies superpowers. And I know that if you use that new thing today in whatever way you wish, right, you have a tremendous advantage, because we have obviously not gained full adoption yet. At some point, that will change, and when that changes, I just don't know. And so I think the best thing one can do, if you are, in this business or any other for that matter, is to maintain as great awareness as possible about where are we in this transformation, what is possible today, where am I in relation to that, right, and where do I want to be. But I think that trying to anticipate what the world looks like in 10 years, you might as well play the lottery.
All right. That was pretty complex answer. Thank you for sharing your ideas.
Sorry.
That wasn't really clear, but I understand totally what you're talking about, because let's say even a couple of years ago, we cannot even imagine where the GPT gonna be. I'm not sure when that came on the market. I think that's like about 1.5 years. 2022. So that's already almost 3 years from now.
Yeah.
So yeah. And we cannot even imagine the first time when it came on the market and I started using that, it was just something that helped me to check the grammar in my emails and just polish the emails. Right now, I can talk to it and get a great comparison information. So that's definitely saving me a lot of time. And I'm pretty sure if, let's say, you're going to take my GPT with my profile, like after using this for 3 years, you can put already some tasks that I'm doing daily on the GPT, and it will do this better than me, at least faster, definitely. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a great co-pilot, but it's still not replace the humans in the future. But it will save us a lot of time, and time is a key. We're not getting younger.
Indeed. Although maybe we will have more life. We'll see. Maybe it'll help us with that.
At least you will have a little bit more free time in that life.
Yes, I hope so.
All right. So, and the last question regarding not an AI, but the plans for the Saltbox. Do you guys have anything exciting coming up soon that you want to share with our listeners? Maybe some projects, maybe some steps, or something that you guys excited about.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, more than anything else, we're just excited about the future, and we are excited to continue to grow the business. Today we have just about 1,000 members of Saltbox across the country, but we know that there are hundreds of thousands out there, and we're working hard to reach all of them. And so, I think that Saltbox aside, I think that it is just an incredibly exciting moment in time to be an entrepreneur. There is endless possibility. There's a little bit of risk, but that kind of gives life to things. And so yeah, just all around excited. But I think in terms of Saltbox, we're just going to continue down our current growth path. You should expect to see new locations coming from us soon. But just keep getting better at what we're doing.
Okay. So, thank you for sharing. And if, let's say, our listeners will decide to learn more about the company, about the territories where you guys are operating, how can they get in touch with you or your team to get the answers?
Well, saltbox.com is a great place to go. You'll find a lot of information there. You can also email me. I'm happy to talk. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, and I'm at Tyler@saltbox.com.
All right. So thank you for sharing the contacts. And because we're running out of time, the last thing that I will ask you to do, can you please give our listeners some final statements, something that will, I don't know, maybe push them to conquer new heights, or maybe just keep running their businesses, and something that will help them to keep the single mind mindset for the future?
Yeah, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I'm just going to go back again to the topic of the year here, perhaps of the decade or century, AI. I think that, and I'll say it in this way: this is a technology that we believe has transformative potential. We have, I believe, 8,740 hours in a year, something like that. How many of your hours do you think it is worth investing in to deeply understand this technology and to develop ways to apply it to whatever it is you're pursuing? That number is not zero. What is it? And so whatever that number is, I would encourage listeners to make sense of it and to go and do that. But I think it's a moment not to be missed.
All right. That sounds really cool. Yeah, I appreciate your participation. I appreciate your final statement. That was Tyler Scriven, co-founder and CEO of Saltbox. Tyler, thank you for being with us today. I appreciate you as a guest today and everything that you share with us. So, if you guys want to get in touch with Tyler, just remember everything that he said about the contacts. You can find him on LinkedIn. You can go to the saltbox.com and there learn a little bit more about our guest. For the rest, folks, we're still in the same place and we're getting ready for the next podcast episode. So, Tyler, if you want to say something else in the end, just go ahead, and we're going to end up this conversation for today.
Thank you so much, Yurii. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much too. Our listeners, have a great day and the rest of the week. We're looking forward to have our next guest next time. Ciao for now.